In today's video, we're going to be trying to predict who is going to dethrone every single current active champion in the WWE today. And I mean every champion, including all of those on the WWE's main roster, as well as every champion down in NXT. In case you're new around here, this is a monthly series that gives us the opportunity to stop, look around, smell the roses, and analyze the current state of championship feuds in the WWE. So we're going to go through every single champion. I'm going to tell you who I think is going to dethrone them, and I'll try to lay out all of the reasons as to why. And obviously in the comments, you can agree or disagree, but be civil. And as always, don't forget to subscribe to this channel, ring the bell for notifications. If you're a wrestling fan, I know that you're going to fall in love with his YouTube channel because we always upload daily wrestling content. And if daily wrestling content isn't enough, go check out the Patreon, patreon.com/SantiZap. Over there, you're going to get so much more extra content that we can never upload here on YouTube because it uses footage and all of that would get blocked here on YouTube. So go check it out, patreon.com/SantiZap. Link in the description, link in the pinned comment. I still feel like crap. Let's start the video. Let's start things off by talking about the WWE Women's Tag Team Championships. Now, in the last video, the champions were the team of Naomi and Bianca Belair. Now, interestingly enough, in that last video, I was starting to sniff out the end of their championship reign, mostly because of the impending return of one named Jade Cargill, who I thought would eventually cost them the championships. In the last video, I predicted that they would lose the championships to a team of Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez, and I predicted that it would be because of a interference from Jade Cargill. Now, that didn't end up happening. In fact, they lost the championships before Jade Cargill returned, and they lost the championships to Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez. So I still ended up being correct, and they lost these championships in a relatively clean manner. I say clean because Dominic Mysterio did get himself involved from time to time, but we do have brand new WWE Women's Tag Team Champions. However, now that we have new tag team champions, the division has been kind of reset because Bianca and Naomi won't be coming back after these championships because Jade Cargill did eventually return at Elimination Chamber. She took out Naomi, likely creating a program between those two. And then we have Bianca Belair, who she herself won the Elimination Chamber match and will now be going after the Women's World Championship at WrestleMania, which leaves nothing for the current champions. And when you look at the current landscape of the women's tag team division, it's pretty damn barren. It's so barren that I'm actually going to predict somebody not from the main roster. I'm actually going to go down to NXT, and there is no current program between these two teams so far, but I'm going to go with the team of Zarya and Sol Ruca. And the reason I'm going for these two is because these two are two of the biggest, fastest rising stars in NXT, and they've made it very clear that their goal is to win the women's tag team championships, and they've yet to really get an opportunity to do so, but they're hot, they're popular, and I do think that at some point or another, they'll cross over with Liv and Raquel and bring the championships down to NXT, a place where they're doing a better job of building the women's tag team division in the first place. I don't mind the idea of the women's tag team championships going to NXT for a while, considering that Raw and SmackDown now have women's mid-card belts and the US title and the Intercontinental Championship. So I would love for WWE to focus on those and allow the insane plethora of women that they have down in NXT continue to develop the women's tag team championship division. So yeah, I'll go with this, even though currently there's nothing connecting these two teams, but I don't hate this. Staying with the Raw side of the tag team division, the current champions of the World Tag Team Championships are the War Raiders, who just recently defended back-to-back their championships in great matches against American Made. Look, I think American Made might still be in the running, especially depending on how this Chad Gable storyline goes with all of the tricks that he learns from this secret luchador sage that he met in the back alley of a Mexican city. We'll see, but as of right now, I am going to stick with my old prediction, and I am going to say the New Day. I think that the New Day at some point or another is going to actually go after something of substance, something of worth, as opposed to just endlessly fighting the NPCs of the LWO. I think that they need to pull the trigger on doing something of meaningfulness with this New Day heel turn because they've yet to do so. The New Day heel turn has felt, let's face it, so far incredibly wasted, but putting the championships on these two and giving them a nice heel championship run could really revitalize what was the best heel turn of 2024. So I'm not changing this. I am going to stick with the New Day here. Now let's talk about the SmackDown side of the tag team championships and talk about the WWE Tag Team Championships, where the current champions are DIY, Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano. Now, since the last video, they've actually defended these championships against Pretty Deadly. They retained, and I do still think that Pretty Deadly might still be in the running, but it looks like everyone is in the running. It looks like the SmackDown tag team division is heading for a collision course to a giant multi-team match at WrestleMania, a multi-team match that I wouldn't be surprised if it's a big-ass ladder match or something like that. Because we do have, obviously, DIY in the picture, Motor City Machine Guns, Pretty Deadly, Los Garzas, and the team that I do think will eventually walk out with the tag team championships once the smoke settles in the Street Profits. They were my prediction last month, and I'm going to stick with this prediction as of now. When I look at the tag team division, these are the ones that look the strongest, the scariest, and the best poised to take the championships, because not only do we have a very strong, dominant tag team, but we also have a new demeanor that makes me want to see what they look like as heel champions. So I'm not changing this. I'm going to keep the Street Profits here from last month. Oh my God, Tony, put him out, put him out, put him out.
Jesus.
Dude, he can, oh my God. Oh, beautiful. Look at this. Yes.
Twice.
Oh, okay, that was gnarly. That, folks, was a sneak peek of this week's Wrestling is Cool Match Club, available exclusively on patreon.com/SantiZap. This week, we're looking at Penta versus Vampiro in a crazy Lucha Underground death match. Jeff Hardy versus Matt Hardy in the ultimate deletion in TNA. A genuinely perfect match between Mayu Iwatani and Syuri in Stardom in 2024. Trish Stratus versus Becky Lynch at Payback 2023 in a steel cage match. And Roman Reigns versus Seth Rollins at Money in the Bank 2016, including that Dean Ambrose cash-in. You're going to be getting this, plus the Raw reviews, the SmackDown reviews, the currently ongoing Royal Rumble watch-alongs, the currently ongoing Undertaker WrestleMania match watch-alongs, and more. All of this is content that we can never upload here to YouTube because it would just get blocked because of copyright constraints. So I do encourage you to come try the Patreon out at least for 1 month, because you're going to get so much more extra content, more content than I actually upload here on the YouTube page. So just come try it out for 1 month. Patreon.com/SantiZap, link in the description, link in the pinned comment. Let's get you back to the video. The NXT tag team division is so barren and so dead that they basically have to go to other divisions and other promotions in order to fill this out. Now, the current champions are Fraxium. I'm a MILF. Man, I love Fraxium. They are incredible. However, the tag team division on NXT is the weakest that it's been in a really long time, and it's pretty much entirely carried by the amazing matches that they're having off the back of Fraxium. Now, in the last video, I said that they would lose the championships to Inamura and Josh Briggs. Now, my reasoning wasn't honestly that crazy. I said that, well, in Noah, they gave Omos a tag team championship, and I figured that since Inamura is from Noah, that they might have had a deal where Inamura would also carry tag team championship gold like Omos did in Noah. I don't know, maybe. They did end up having an awesome championship match. What a great match that was at Vengeance Day, but Fraxium did end up picking up the victory. So now we're back to square one, where there really just are no teams in NXT that, in my opinion, are of any sort of consequence to the amazing team that is Fraxium. So we have to go to none other than TNA. I'm going to go with the Hardy Boys. Now, I know the Hardy Boys are the current TNA tag team champions, and they're defending the TNA tag team championships against Fraxium at Roadblock, but what if at some point, maybe at Stand and Deliver, they put up the NXT tag team championships instead? And I could see a world where WWE, even though I find it crazy to think that they would give a championship to TNA talent, I feel like the one set of TNA talent that they would be comfortable giving gold to would be the Hardy Boys, who are WWE legends. So yeah, why not? I'm going to go with the Hardy Boys at some point holding both the TNA tag team championships and the NXT tag team championships. That'll allow WWE and TNA to have the Hardy Boys across Thursday Night Impact and Tuesday Night NXT as much as they want. The Women's North American Championship. In the last video, the champion was Fallon Henley, and I predicted that she would lose the championship to none other than one of my favorites right now in Stephanie Vaquer. And I predicted that she would lose the championship to Stephanie Vaquer as early as NXT Vengeance Day, and ding, 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 I was correct. The new champion is Stephanie Vaquer. Now, there's a lot of things going on with the women's division, especially near the top, with Julia potentially being injured. We have a title unification match coming up at NXT Roadblock between Julia and Stephanie Vaquer to unify the North American and the NXT Championship. So there's a lot going on, a lot of moving pieces right now. Now, those moving pieces don't really have anyone currently gunning after Stephanie Vaquer's NXT North American Championship because the championship reign is still fairly new. So I'm going to have to just sort of predict something out of the blue. I am going to go with eventually at some point, Stephanie Vaquer is going to be a double champion, but she will lose the North American Championship to one of NXT's newest signees in Jordynne Grace. It is really a testament of just how absolutely stacked the women's roster is in NXT when you can just bounce from Julia to Stephanie Vaquer to Jordynne Grace and just like that. Here's the thing, like Jordynne Grace could very well just go for the NXT Championship. That's fine. I think that that's believable as well. But when you have a talent like Stephanie Vaquer holding the NXT North American Championship, it's going to eventually feel like one of the top championships because of the talent that's holding it. So somebody like Jordynne Grace going after the NXT North American Championship when it's being held by Stephanie Vaquer doesn't really seem like a downgrade. The Women's United States Championship, this thing is just in limbo. Well, the current champion is Chelsea Green, and she seems to be in the Meechin vortex where she doesn't defend against anybody not named Meechin. And I'm honestly starting to sniff out the end of this championship reign here. I think it's going to be ending soon considering WWE just has her losing left, right, and center. She just got pinned by Sol Ruca down in NXT. Like, why? In a tag team match. Why is the women's mid-card champion getting pinned down in NXT? I do not get it. I'm going to go with the person that I predicted last month. I'm not changing my tune. It does seem very much like this person is gunning after the United States Championship, and I think that once she does, that'll be all she wrote for Chelsea Green. I'm going to say that it's going to be Zelina Vega, the best superstar that starts with the letter Z. Zelina Vega needs a championship, man. Like, she's too damn good, and it seems to me that maybe the World Championships might be just a little bit out of reach with how just stacked that division is, with the likes of Charlotte, Rhea Ripley, Bianca Belair just sort of hovering around both world titles. It makes it difficult for the Zelina Vegas of the world to make room for themselves, but the mid-card titles, this is exactly where somebody like Zelina Vega can flourish, so I'm going to say Zelina Vega here still. The Women's Intercontinental Championship. In the last video, the champion was Lyra Valkyria, and she is still the champion. She just defended the championship twice against Dakota Kai and Ivy Nile in both excellent matches. Lyra Valkyria is showing up to be a awesome, very, very impressive workhorse of a champion. Now, in the last video, I predicted that she would lose the championship to Becky Lynch. I predicted that Becky Lynch would come back to the WWE and set up a program with Lyra Valkyria going into WrestleMania for the Women's Intercontinental Championship. I don't think that that's going to be the case anymore. I feel like if Becky Lynch were to return to the WWE to make this program a reality, she would have already returned by now. However, there seems to be no indication that we're going to be getting Becky Lynch at any time before WrestleMania. So maybe this is a possibility somewhere down the line after WrestleMania. But for now, I have to change my tune. And I'm changing my tune to another 4 horsewoman. I'm changing my tune over to Bayley. One of the things that I would love for WWE to do is to put that Intercontinental Championship match against a legend like Bayley, but also include up-and-comers like Roxanne Perez. So basically what I'd love to see is Lyra Valkyria versus Roxanne Perez versus Bayley for the Intercontinental Championship at WrestleMania. And putting a mid-card belt on a Bayley can, of course, be another thing that you could do to check off on the resume that is the legendary career of Bayley, but it could also be a great way to elevate the overall importance and prestige of the Intercontinental Championship. So I'm going to pivot here, not Becky Lynch anymore. I'm changing my tune over to Bayley, and we have heard Bayley in interviews mention that she is interested in the Women's Intercontinental Championship, and she already has beaten Lyra Valkyria in the tournament leading up to the Women's Elimination Chamber match. So she's already got one up on the champion, which, I mean, in my logic, in my brain, it just makes sense for that to be enough of a reason, enough of a catalyst to give Bayley a championship match. The North American Championship. In the last video, the champion was Tony D'Angelo, and I said in the last video that I felt like Tony D'Angelo's championship reign has been lackluster since beating Obafemi, and I felt like it was going to be coming to an end quite soon. I predicted that it was going to be to Ridge Holland. However, he literally just lost the championship yesterday to Shawn Spears, which, funnily enough, 2 months ago, I predicted that it would be Shawn Spears, but I backed off of this prediction, and I'm regretting that now. So yeah, Shawn Spears is your new NXT North American champion, and I couldn't be happier for him. It's kind of crazy to think that this is his first championship belt in the WWE. WWE, which is just crazy to think about. I think this is a good call. You're putting the championship on a veteran who is currently mentoring a bunch of youngsters in this new faction that he's got. He can be a great resource, obviously, for this faction that he's building up, but he can also be a great big bad guy in the mid-card for people to try and challenge. I don't think that Tony D'Angelo and the family are going to be gunning after this championship, and if they do, I think that they're going to lose in any sort of rematches that they get, so I'm going to go in a different direction here. I think we just have a matchup of AEW excommunicados. I think let's do Shawn Spears versus Ricky Saints, who just jumped ship from AEW to NXT. I do believe that Ricky Saints is talented enough to be gunning after the actual NXT Championship, but it just seems like a far-fetched dream right now when the champion is no other than Oba frickin' Femi. But I think that a program between Ricky Saints and Shawn Spears could be wonderful, especially because of their AEW connection. You could really tell a really interesting storyline here. Plus, this immediately puts Ricky Saints in a position to be gunning after something important, which I can't stress enough as how good that looks from an optics perspective. If you're a prospective AEW looming free agent coming over to WWE, seeing Ricky Saints immediately get put into a championship program has to be very encouraging. So if I'm WWE, I'm doing that. I'm setting the precedent that if you come over to the WWE and you've made your name somewhere else, we're going to treat you like a star and immediately have you gunning after major things like mid-card championships here with the NXT North American Championship. So I'm going to say Ricky Saints. It's still weird saying Saints and not Starks. The United States Championship. In the last video, the champion was Shinsuke Nakamura, and Shinsuke Nakamura hasn't really been able to get off the ground running as the champion. He hasn't really been able to get an interesting storyline going or a good set of matches. I do believe that he's going to be losing this championship sometime soon. He has a championship match scheduled against LA Knight, but I don't think that he's going to lose there. I think that he is going to hold this maybe until WrestleMania and eventually lose it to Big Jim, Jimmy Uso. I say this because I have a feeling that WWE wants to do the big heartfelt moment where Jimmy Uso and Jey Uso are celebrating with their respective championships with confetti coming down. I don't know. I know how WWE likes to tug at heartstrings, and I can see it a mile away that this is one of those heartstrings that they want to pull at. So I'm not going to change my mind. This is what I said last month. I'm going to say it this month again. Big Jim is your next United States champion. Now let's talk about the Intercontinental Championship. And this has been kind of wacky recently because the champion is currently Braun Breaker, and he was the champion in the last video. Now, in the last video, I predicted that he would lose the championship in a WrestleMania match against AJ Styles. And everything looked like they were going to have a WrestleMania match. They started the program. Braun Breaker was the heel. He tried to attack AJ Styles. It looked like they were setting up a program. Now, recently, it seems like they've retconned everything and they've made us forget that AJ Styles versus Braun Breaker even started, because now it looks like Braun Breaker is now a babyface, and now he's feuding with who I think will eventually beat him in Finn Balor. I think that Finn Balor is going to be your next Intercontinental Champion, and this is the big win that Finn Balor fans have been clamoring for. I think that the new member of the Judgment Day will play a key role in helping Finn Balor win, and I feel like if this new member can help Finn Balor win the Intercontinental Championship, then Finn Balor will buy into having a new member as a member of the Judgment Day. Because right now, he's really just off-put by the whole idea of having a new member to the Judgment Day, but if that person were to help him win championship gold, I feel like he'd be okay with it. Kind of like how JD McDonough ultimately endeared himself with Damian Priest, where he helped them win the tag team championships. So yeah, I'm going to change my answer to this, considering WWE just wants me to forget that the AJ Styles feud even began in the first place. The Women's NXT Championship. In the last video, the champion was Julia, who became the champion earlier in the year. Now, in the last video, I predicted that she would eventually lose the championship to Stephanie Vaquer, which is interesting because I had Stephanie Vaquer winning the North American Championship, and I had Stephanie Vaquer also winning this. In my mind, I thought that somewhere down the line that they would actually do a title unification match somewhere down the line, maybe NXT Stand and Deliver, but it looks like they've moved that up way quicker than I would have anticipated, because it's now happening next week at NXT Roadblock, where it's winner take all. Now, there are major rumors that Julia is injured. Now, you guys know me. You guys know that I do not trust leaks or dirt sheets as far as I can throw them. But if that is the case, then there's a very strong possibility that they're going to be putting both titles here on Stephanie Vaquer so that Julia can take time off to go get surgery, rehab, or whatever it is. So because of that, I'm doubling down on this, all right? right? I'm taking Stephanie Vaquer to be a double champion much earlier than I anticipated. This is crazy. Let's talk about the Women's World Championship. In the last video, Rhea Ripley was the champion. Now, here's the thing. I predicted that Rhea Ripley would lose the championship to Io Sky. I predicted that Io Sky would win the Elimination Chamber and then go on to WrestleMania and then face Rhea Ripley and win the Women's World Championship. That's what I predicted. However, Io Sky didn't qualify for the Women's Elimination Chamber and then instead got what I thought was just a pity one-off Women's World Championship match against Rhea Ripley the night after Elimination Chamber. And not in a million years did I expect Io Sky to actually win that match. So I was right, but I was like accidentally right because this is not how I predicted things to go. And here we are. We are a little bit over a month away from WrestleMania, and one of the biggest names in the industry, Rhea Ripley, has dropped the Women's World title, thus actually robbing us of one of the dream matches that many of us wanted to get since Bianca Belair won the Elimination Chamber, Bianca Belair versus Rhea Ripley. Now, everything is up in the air. It could be Io versus Bianca. It could be Bianca, Io versus Rhea. Who the hell knows? What I do know is whether my logic was awfully wrong, I was still right. So I'm going to take this as a W wherever I can. Now, I am going to keep this simple. I do think that they're going to put the championship belt on Bianca Belair, most likely to win it at WrestleMania. And I do believe that this is going to set up a program for the Women's World Championship, likely setting up a major feud between Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill that will culminate in the first ever two-night SummerSlam for that Women's World Championship. So I'm going to take Bianca Belair winning specifically at WrestleMania. I'm not going to change anything about this. Look, the WWE Women's Championship, the current champion and the champion in the last video is Tiffany Stratton. The WWE has done a admittedly very poor job at making me believe that Tiffany Stratton even has so much as a chance against Charlotte Flair. The tag team match with Trish Stratus against Nia Jax and Candice LeRae did our champion absolutely zero favors, and she is just such a giant underdog going into this WrestleMania match that I'm not changing my tune. I think that Charlotte Flair is just going to win this thing. Now let's talk about the NXT Championship, where the champion is Obafemi. Now, Obafemi is currently feuding with Moose from TNA, and I don't think that that's going to lead to anything where Obafemi loses the championship to Moose or from anybody from TNA. I think that this is all filler. Cool filler, don't get me wrong, but filler nonetheless. I feel like Obafemi is going to be holding this thing for a really long time. In fact, I feel like it's going to be such a long time that we're going to have to do the thing that we've been doing for the last couple of months. We're going to have to dive into different mediums. I think that Dominic Toretto from the Fast and Furious franchise has a good chance against Obafemi. This is a guy that has been able to survive falling off a freaking bridge. This is a guy that becomes more of a superhuman every single movie. This is a guy that initially started the movie franchise as just a dude that raced cars and finished as a world-renowned vigilante. If you're a comic book fan, you might want to look at Doomsday. Doomsday is one of the most powerful characters pound for pound that the DC universe has ever had. He, in fact, killed Superman. That alone is a feat that I think could put him toe-to-toe against somebody like Obafemi. However, I still like Obafemi's chances. Now, if you could actually convince Obafemi to, instead of having a wrestling match, have a dual monsters match against the King of Games in a shadow duel against Yami Yugi, then I really like the chances of Obafemi losing this match and losing his soul to the Shadow Realm and for Yami Yugi to win this match. Brock Lesnar, if you know, you know. And Jon Snow, have you seen how much plot armor this dude had throughout this entire series? I know that in the books he's kind of at the moment, but in the show, that guy should have died like 15 times and just refused to. So if you have that much plot armor, there's a good chance you might actually be able to pull off a win against Obafemi. But I'm going to stick with this. I am going to stick with Javon Evans literally like a year from now. I'm talking 365 days. Javon Evans will continue to slowly build himself up with these feuds like he's currently having with Ethan Page and eventually going to an underdog feud for the NXT Championship. But it's going to be a long time until Obafemi loses this thing. The World Heavyweight Championship. Not changing my tune here, folks. The champion in the last video was Gunther. He's going to be holding this thing right through to WrestleMania. I am predicting that he will lose this thing at WrestleMania to Jey Uso. I'm not overcomplicating this. Honestly, if Jey Uso doesn't win at WrestleMania, then what the hell was the point of all of this? And then now the WWE Undisputed Championship. In the last video, the champion was Cody Rhodes. And interestingly enough, I did say that John Cena would be the one to eventually dethrone him. However, I made this prediction well before all of the craziness happened at Elimination Chamber with John Cena now being heel. When I made this prediction, I honestly wasn't all that sure. I kind of just threw this at the wall because I love John Cena and I wanted it to be a reality. But now I'm really certain that John Cena is going to be the one to dethrone Cody Rhodes. Listen, if you've pulled the trigger on the John Cena heel turn, you better be ready to fully pull the trigger on this thing. If you're making Cena a heel, something that people were not expecting ever in the history of this sport, you gotta make him the biggest bad guy that you could possibly make him. And the way to do that is by making him the champion, and by making him the champion at the biggest stage of them all in his last WrestleMania ever, WrestleMania 41. Let's cement the legacy of John Cena by really cementing and really putting our feet down on this John Cena heel turn by making him champion. All right, folks, that's it. Thanks for watching this video. Go bye, get out of here.